Welcome back, everyone, to this lecture on the Coalesce function. The Coalesce function accepts an unlimited number of arguments. It returns the first argument that is not null. If all arguments are null, then the Coalesce function will return null. So in practice, you simply have the Coalesce function, and then you provide in any number of arguments in order that you want them to be evaluated in. And typically these are going to be column names. And so to show you very simple examples, if you say select coalesce 1 and 2, it's going to go along in order until it finds the first non-null value. In this case, it's simply 1, so it returns 1. However, if one of the values ends up being null first, such as select coalesce null, 2, 3, then the first value is null, so it continues along. Finally, it finds a non-null value, which is 2, so it returns back 2. Now, of course, I'm sure by now you're wondering, when is this actually going to become useful? Well, the coalesce function becomes useful when you're querying a table that contains null value, and perhaps you're trying to perform some sort of operation on it, which you can't actually perform with a null value. So, in case it's null, you want to substitute it with another value. I want to show you a really common example. So here we have a table of products. We have the item name ABC, the original price $100, $300, $200, and then a discount in dollars. So if the item has a discount off the price, it's listed in the discount column. So item A currently has a discount of $20. Item B does not have a discount right now, so it's null. And then item C has a discount of $10. So here we have a really common issue where we have a null value because something doesn't exist. So technically item B does not have a discount, so it's a null value there. But if we're trying to perform mathematical operations, that is technically a discount of 0. So it's really common to use coalesce to actually replace null values with a 0 for a calculation without having to affect or alter your original table. So let's imagine we're trying to answer the question, what is the final price? Which is going to be the price column minus the discount column. Well, we could try the following. We could say select the item column, comma, and then calculate, here in parentheses, price column minus discount column as final, so let's say as the final price, from table. Now, unfortunately, that gets us this result. So we're able to correctly calculate the final price for items A and C, but since the discount was null for item B, SQL can't actually subtract null from an integer. So those are kind of incompatible data types. So instead, it relays back the information to you, essentially alerting you to the fact that one of the items was null by telling you that item B for final price is null. Now in this particular situation, we actually do not want the null value there. Instead, we want to know the correct discount. So this is where coalesce comes into play. So since this doesn't work for item B, we want it to be 300, essentially 300 minus 0, we're going to use coalesce. And so this is where we can use coalesce in a clever fashion in order to fill in values for a null in case they pop up without having to affect the original table. So here we're going to say select item, comma, price minus, and instead of just subtracting the discount column, what we're going to do is say coalesce discount, comma, 0. So think about what's happening here logically. SQL is first going to check discount and check if it's a non-null value. So if it's non-null, meaning there's actually a number there, it's simply going to return back that number. So if there's a number for the discount, such as 10 or 20, it returns back that particular number. However, if discount is null, then it continues on to the next value, which in our case is 0. So it's super common just to have these two values in a coalesce function to basically say, hey, if this particular column happens to be null, go ahead and substitute in this next value, which in our case is 0. So now we no longer get a null value for item B. Instead, we get price minus 0, which is 300 for that particular row. Okay, so that's really where you're going to be seeing coalesce used a lot in the real world. So I want you to keep the coalesce function in mind in case you ever encounter a table of null values that you want to perform operations on. However, you don't want to actually go in and do any changes to the table itself, because it's often nice to understand that there's a null value there, essentially indicating that there currently is no discount on that product, for example, and not that in this particular case there's a zero discount, because those can mean different things depending on the situation. So again, we have that useful function coalesce, which will come in handy if you ever want to do substitutions like that in the future. I'll see you at the next lecture.